Hello, I'm Christian, this is Eric,
How's it going?
and we are continuing our reviews of George Lucas's prequel trilogy with, grab the DVD, my son, Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Shit. I say that, it's actually Revenge of the Sith, and I say that, but it's actually, honestly, probably the best of the prequel trilogy.
We've gone through so much to get to this point.
But that's not really saying much either. This still has a lot of problems, but I'll be honest, I kind of like this one. It's not a great movie by any means, but I enjoyed it. It's like, maybe you could say it's a guilty pleasure, but like, when I was rewatching it again for this review, it still has some cringeworthy stuff, but I felt like this one was a little more focused than the first two were. This one had the best story of the three prequels, and I don't know, just, there was nothing in this movie that was making me overly angry. It was just, I was into it. You know, it still has its problems. I will never claim this is a great movie, but I can't get angry at this one. I do kind of like this one.
I get angry because it could have been so much better.
The whole freaking prequel trilogy could have been so much better.
I know. But that's the thing, like, again, we go back to, like, George Lucas, pretty much writing these scripts out on a single pad, one draft and turning it in, and how just, like, because I do agree, this is the best of the prequel trilogy. I mean, we can make the argument that the first two doesn't even need to exist. Like, we can make the argument the prequels start here. But, disregarding that, this is what we're running with. So, but I do agree. It's the best of the prequels. It's got some great moments, and I will even admit the story does, I hesitantly say, a little more focused. Kinda. Sort of. Things don't make sense still. But the moments that happen, I mean, at least the moments that do happen do leave an impact on you.
Yeah.
Pretty much, Anakin versus Obi-Wan, Anakin turning evil. There is pretty decent manipulation by Palpatine in manipulating Anakin into turning to the dark side, even though, it's still not the bestly executed, but it's better than what was executed before, so I'll say that. And it, Yoda, with the emotion of him, of his, fellow Jedi mates dying and everything, like, there's some good moments here and there. But it's just, like I was joking around before, it's just such a grind to get to this point.
Yeah.
And the worst part is that it could have been so much better.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Alright, now the plot of Revenge of the Sith is, at this point, pretty much the Republic is at war with, like, this.
It's pretty much the tail end of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So, at the end of Attack of the Clones, as we mentioned before, the Republic manages to somehow have this army just completely fall into their lap because bad writing. And so, conveniently timed, the Republic gets this army dropped into their lap as the Separatists prepare this huge droid army as well to basically fight the Republic. And so, Attack of the Clones, what takes place after the Attack of the Clones, which is pretty much the Clone Wars. And pretty much, do you want me to go into, like, the cartoon Clone Wars?
You could do it a little bit just to give some context, I guess.
Okay. Well, pretty much, Anakin, if we go by the 2009 animated series, Anakin gets a Padawan named Ahsoka, and pretty much he's a general, and pretty much they're battling Grievous and Count Dooku, and there's a little moment where Darth Maul comes back and everything, but pretty much it's clones versus droids and the Jedi versus the, Palpatine behind the scenes and Dooku and Grievous. And pretty much all that happens. If you want to go by the Greg Weisman Clone Wars from I think 2004. Mace Windu, if that's considered canon as part of the movies, Mace Windu actually crushed Grievous's heart, which is why he's coughing all the time. Fun tidbit. Definitely check both those shows out if you haven't seen it. But pretty much all that leads into the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, which is pretty much the tail end of the Clone Wars, so no matter what canon you think of. And Obi-Wan and Anakin are attacking Grievous's ship, and because Palpatine got captured, and so they're trying to rescue him, and they do. And then they get back on Coruscant, things happen.
Count Dooku gets his head chopped off.
Yes, and this is where it shows that Anakin is really delving deep into the dark side, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically what happens in the movie is Anakin has a premonition that Padme...
He sees into the future.
Yeah, is going to die from in childbirth.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially Palpatine, who is actually Darth Sidious, is manipulating Anakin into joining the dark side, saying, hey, if you join the dark side, there's a way to prevent Padme from dying.
Well, he also manipulated him by saying things, kind of going against the Jedi Order, too, because, the Jedi Order, they don't trust Anakin. I guess...
I wonder why.
Yeah. Probably based on past experiences, that's probably why they're not trusting him and everything. But yeah, Palpatine is, suggesting to Anakin that, Grievous may be captured if they sent you to, basically encouraging him to kind of go off on his own escapades. And then the deal breaker pretty much was the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise, who could influence the midichlorians and could save people from death.
And you know what?
The writing's terrible, but it gets the point across.
I will defend that scene. I think that's actually an interesting scene.
It's a great scene, but the dialogue is awful. Palpatine didn't literally have to say exactly what he needed,
Yeah, true.
Just to hit it on the head for us dummies to understand what's going on,
All right.
You could pretty much... You got the point when he says he could influence the midichlorians.
He shouldn't have said midichlorians because those don't exist.
They exist in the prequels.
No, they don't. But basically, more or less, this is the story...
Of how he becomes Darth Vader. Yeah. And pretty much how it ties into A New Hope at the beginning.
And it ties in too well, actually.
I agree.
And also, this is a spoiler, but Padme does die in childbirth, which really kind of shits on that touching scene in Return of the Jedi where Luke asks Leia, do you remember your mother? And she's like, yeah, she was very sad. It's like, well, you have a good memory if you can remember her when you were an infant.
To be fair, playing devil's advocate again, she might have been referencing Senator Organa's wife.
You mean that woman we saw in one scene at the end of the fucking movie?
Yes. To be fair. That's probably who she's referencing.
Yeah, but that's stupid.
But it could be also referencing Padme when she's super sad when they gave birth.
Discounting the prequels, and let's say there was just the original trilogy, the implications of that scene from Return of the Jedi, because basically you get the idea that maybe Padme was taking care of Leia for a number of years, and the reason she's sad is this person that she loved became this monster.
Yeah.
But no, you kill her off right there, and it's like...
Yeah. No, I agree, and again, it just goes back to the script of, did Lucas really understand what he was did he really understand the original trilogy enough? And I would say, because of the prequels, I don't think he did understand why Star Wars, the original trilogy, made such a huge impact. And there's just some things I think Lucas glossed over that could have made the prequels so much better.
But there's still some good stuff with it, I would say. I mean, I will say Hayden Christensen's acting, you might call me insane for this.
It's better.
It's a little better in this one.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
I would even dare say it was good.
Yeah.
For what stuff he was given in the terrible, terrible script, he did a good job.
You only get Jar Jar in one shot in this movie and he doesn't say shit. That's a positive. I mean,
out of all the problems, Jar Jar Binks is like your biggest thing.
well, Jar Jar's a thing that needed to be like freaking euthanized. So
Fair.
okay, we could make fun of the no, which I gotta say the no scene. That should have been a heartbreaking moment, but it's so freaking laughable.
Yeah, I feel like he should have just like walked off or something. Like
it should have. It honestly should have ended where you see the mask go on him, and it cuts to black.
Actually, yeah. What? Christian. That nice. Nicely done. That yeah. Or at least like not even show him like the whole thing. Just puts on the mask and then cuts to the burial scene of Padme, and then it cuts to him them building the Death Star. If you even want to show that.
Okay, and then
fair.
And then at the end where you see the Empire has officially come into being, you see like Imperial officers. I would have liked to have known
Peter Cushing was there too.
Well, not the Peter Cushing was dead at this point.
Yeah.
A young Grand Moff Tarkin appears in the movie,
yeah.
which is kind of cool. But I would have liked to have seen how the recruitment for the Imperial officers would have been.
Well, you saw it in Solo. They just picked people just joined the Empire.
Yeah, but I would have liked to have seen it in this movie.
I feel like that would have been another movie though.
True. Well, that's
or maybe just have like a montage of like a lot of what happened over the years. Like you just see like a time montage of just quickly show like what happened leading into A New Hope. If you wanted to end it exactly at the start of A New Hope, pretty much.
And then they missed a major opportunity in this. There's a scene in the movie where Mace Windu, played by Samuel Jackson, dies after he finds out that Palpatine is Darth Sidious, and he goes out the window. And they missed a major opportunity for him to cry, "You motherfucker!" as he was falling. I don't know why that wasn't.
Motherfucker.
Yeah.
Or when Anakin cuts his arm off, he just looks at him, motherfucker.
That would have been great. Okay, another thing I want to point out is the lightsaber battle at the end. I'm not even going to say it went on for too long. It was way too freaking choreographed. And then again, I kind of praised the lightsaber battle at the end of Phantom Menace, and that was also overly choreographed.
Yeah.
But in this, there's literally a moment in the lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin where they're just swinging the swords in front of their faces and they're not even hitting each other. Literally, there was a moment where they're just swinging the swords in front of their faces and not even hitting each other.
It's show-offy, but yeah, no, I hear you, because the whole point of, like, Mustafar, like, the planet as a whole, not foreshadowing, but metaphorically, Mustafar is pretty much the explosion of emotions between the two characters during all these years leading up. I agree with you. It kind of ruins the metaphor a bit.
I will say I related to Anakin when he's burning up, because when I rewatched this movie, I got really, really bad sunburn. So I had like an ice pack on my back because I was so sunburned. So it's like I understood what he was going through when he was burning up. It's like, yes, I feel your pain right now, Anakin.
Yeah, no you don't.
Not to mention that they're fighting above all that lava. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't they have both been burnt up being that freaking close to the lava?
Again, it was a metaphor for the built-up of emotion of like 20 years or however long they were training, because Anakin apparently hated Obi-Wan's guts for some reason, because we never really saw why. Because, to be fair, Obi-Wan was right the entire time.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the biggest sin about these prequels is they don't show you enough moments between the two. They don't show you enough, like, actual them training.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see anything that maybe would justify Anakin's bitchiness, where it's like, maybe there are moments where Anakin does do right, but Obi-Wan is overly critical of him and is maybe too hard on him. They don't show you any of that, too.
They tell you about it. They tell you these things happened. Yeah. But you don't. But it's completely different when we've actually seen it happening. Because like, the original trilogy, the events that happen in those movies, like, I would say the audience, part of the reason why the audience loves those movies so much is because the audience feels like they lived those experiences.
Yeah.
They lived it through the characters. Like, they felt like Han, Leia, Chewie, you know, everything that happened to those characters, they felt that happen, you know? Where in the prequels, everything's, the character interaction, the character interaction pretty much is explained to you. You know, the opening scene reintroducing Anakin, who's a completely different character at the start of Attack of the Clones, compared to Phantom Menace, talking to Obi-Wan, talking about the guests of Nung Darks or whatever. Like, they're talking about like these fun, wacky adventures that they had. We didn't see those. It's just words in the wind. You know, it's who cares? Nobody cares about the guests of Nung Darks because no one saw the guests of Nung Darks.
And I do want to say, though, going back to how I do think the basic story for this is good, and this would even tie into, like, Attack of the Clones, as bad as that was, the idea is there, because really, when you break this and Attack of the Clones down, this is really the story of a priest, if you want to look at Jedi as being a stand-in for priest.
Yeah.
This is the story of a man of the cloth who falls in love.
Yeah.
And it's that's sort of the conflict within him, is his faith or his love, and like that, you know?
Yeah, pretty much.
So the story's there, the execution is not there.
Right. And that's the thing, like, what's fascinating about Revenge of the Sith 2 and why it works is because it does... I know we've been saying that, like, the first two, you can arguably make the case that they don't have to exist. Technically, you know, you can kind of get away with with Revenge of the Sith without the prequels. But technically, I think, thinking about it now, the Revenge of the Sith works better. And not saying it's, you know, it's good, but everything that happens works better because we saw everything leading up to it, as shitty as it was.
Yeah.
Am I wrong with that statement?
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. And then it is kind of interesting that Anakin is, if you look at Phantom Menace, the fact that he was born of a virgin.
Yeah.
Him being like a Jesus Christ metaphor is interesting because here he becomes the Antichrist. It's like, might be giving Lucas way more credit than he deserves, but it almost feels like that there's a story from the Bible of the devil tempting Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to look at Palpatine as being a representation of the devil, it's like, what if Jesus actually listened to the devil in that story from the Bible? And it's like, it's Christ, the Messiah, being corrupted.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the original trilogy, you realize that his son took on the role of the actual Messiah. I mean, so there's some interesting things going on there.
I feel like Lucas is smart. That feels right. Like, I don't want to say Lucas is not I don't want to say Lucas is a complete idiot and a buffoon, because he's not. Like,
he does have no chin, though. I do want to point that out. The man has no chin.
But there is a genius to George Lucas in some ways. And like I said, like I don't think he may not be the best storyteller, but there's some good story moments where it's like you could see what he was trying to do.
You did want to bring up the point about how Anakin does technically bring balance to the Force.
Yes. I don't know if, again, like what Christian said, that I don't know, it feels intentional. So I'll give credit where credit's due. Lucas, giving Lucas credit with this, he technically did bring balance to the Force, where Anakin pretty much eliminated all of the Jedi and all of the Sith, down to 2 Jedi, 2 Sith, pretty much, which is pretty much balanced. I believe that's the fan theory behind it, and it makes sense.
Yoda even says, "We misread the prophecy." Yeah, I can't do a Yoda accent, but
yeah, there is a line that said that we may have misread the prophecy and everything.
And this is something that I think I almost feel like Lucas tried to get across, but I think he kind of failed at it too, was...
Mm-hmm.
I think an idea that you could take from this is that part of what led to the Jedi's downfall was they were too full of themselves. They were too big for their britches, if you will. They were too prideful, and there's that whole saying, pride goeth before our fall. Mm-hmm. And that's what allowed Palpatine to basically bring about their downfall, is because they themselves were too arrogant, and there were too many of them too, and so I think that was something that maybe Lucas was trying to go for, but I think he also kind of failed at that.
He definitely failed at it, because there are many lines where, like Mace Windu, even in Revenge of the Sith, is like, I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi. The dark side of the Force surrounds the Chancellor. And it's like...
You should have said that, like, freaking 10 years ago.
Not even that, like... You just said the dark side of the Force and the Chancellor in the same sentence. Might just raise an eyebrow a little bit. You know, you might want to look into that a little bit. You know? Maybe talk to him. You know?
I do want...
How about Anakin, come across like a recording with him, or like Anakin before, like, I don't know. Because, like, I feel like even with the manipulation of Anakin and everything, I still feel like he would have told Obi-Wan, at least, that, Obi-Wan, the Chancellor's been acting weird around me lately. He's been telling me stories about the Sith and this Darth Plagueis guy that I didn't even know was in the Jedi books and everything. Should we look into that?
Well, the thing is, this prequel trilogy does not establish enough of a friendship between Obi-Wan and Anakin.
They established a closer friendship between Palpatine and Anakin.
But honestly, even that, like, I would have liked to have seen more scenes of Palpatine legitimately acting not like a psychopath around Anakin, where you could buy that these two are friends. Yeah. You don't get that.
No, not at all. It's just... It totally feels like Palpatine is purposely just manipulating Anakin, and Anakin's just an idiot.
And it would be believable, though, if we saw stuff beforehand of Palpatine acting perfectly normal around Anakin.
Right. But the thing is, he doesn't act normal in front of really anybody. Just thinking about what could have been with these,
Yeah.
But you could say that for a lot of movies.
True, but, these...
But no, but this is one of the cool things about Star Wars. Even though it has been talked to death and everything, it's fun to talk about, like, what ifs and what could have been. It is very disappointing and heart-wrenching of what could have been, but I think that's one of the things that I personally find Star Wars so fascinating is the man behind the camera, George Lucas, and how...
You mean the man behind the computer?
The man behind the computer, yeah. But that's, like, the interesting thing about it is, like, just so many things with Star Wars where it's, like, the prequels... the original trilogy is so good for all these reasons, and everyone's talked about them, and it's, like, you did technically get, like, the original creators to come back and work on the new trilogy and the new franchise, and they just missed the point completely, and it's just baffling.
I'm going to say this.
It's just
as much as
baffling and fascinating at the same time.
I will say this, as much as I do not like these prequel films, except I do like Revenge of the Sith, despite my problems with it.
To a fault, yeah.
I will say, I think these films do have a right to exist, but they will... Yeah. Even if you made, like, 50 more Star Wars films, nothing is ever going to top that original trilogy. Not even so much in quality, but in terms of the impact, the cultural impact that original trilogy made.
That's one of the things, though, too, with, like, how much of an impact the original trilogy did. It's like, are the, like, even with the prequels and even with the new movies, like I said it to you off camera, but it's like, aren't the creators, like, interested in creating new iconic ideas or new storylines to kind of take it in a different direction or build the Star Wars world? Because pretty much the Star Wars world consists of Han Solo, Leia, Skywalker, the Force, lightsabers, X-wing, TIE fighter, you know, what's it called?
And the Ewoks.
Hyperspace, Ewoks, and aliens and all that. But it's like, but besides like the core ideas of like the original trilogy, there's nothing more to it, and yet it is supposedly this huge, expansive world, and yet they keep going back to the concepts and ideas of the original trilogy.
I hope our reviews of the Disney ones are a little more structured, but I know Eric's going to be even more angry at those. I'm going to be
Last
more
Jedi.
like...
I actually defend Force Awakens to an extent, but Last Jedi is cancer. And
Okay.
I will try my best to explain why, because it is.
We're going to end this off here, and
Yeah.
I'm going to cut to the short reviews, and
Well,
bye, guys.
Yeah.
So Revenge, I mean, definitely the best of the prequels, easily. And honestly, you can see Hayden's performance get better between the two if you watch him back to back. He's like twice a better actor in the third one. He's still a little dry, but like, you know, he's a lot more. He's got more life in him this time around. I think maybe that's meant to be reflective of like what he went through with the Clone Wars, because now he's like a Jedi and a general, and he's like he's not a master, right? Because he gets pissed at one point that he's not a master, but he is like a very experienced Jedi Knight. And if you watch Clone Wars, you know he's been through like all the stuff with Ahsoka. He had his own Padawan and all that stuff. So, yeah, you really felt like he's been through a lot as a character. And it's so epic. I mean, the way that it finally is like the last bridge to what happens in the original trilogy. You know, that whole fight scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's like, you know, the crescendo that comes up like while they're fighting, and the lava like just being everywhere. Like it's so, you really feel like history is almost like kind of being made in that moment. And then, yeah, Padme's death is so fucking sad. As much as like we didn't get to know her as much as you would have liked. Yeah, it's really sad, that scene where she dies. I loved Yoda fighting the Emperor. That's an awesome scene. And people really do bitch about the politics of the prequels, but I think here it actually worked profoundly, because that moment where he announces the establishment of the Empire, you really feel, kind of, to paraphrase Padme, you feel democracy die in that moment. Like, you see people are like up in arms about fascism, which recently just became very relevant, funny enough. So I think that everything that didn't work about the prequels finally kind of in this one starts to click. The politics of it that was pissing people off, it starts to like make a profound impact. Padme, Yoda, even Jar Jar has like one scene in this, right? Even him in that scene, you're like, oh, okay, Jar Jar again. You know, it makes sense that he'd come back, and you see him walking at Padme's funeral too, like the saddest you've ever seen him. You know, as much as you might hate him, you get where he's at. You know. And then, I mean, I love how unafraid it was to be dark. Like that scene where Anakin just wipes out the younglings, wipes out everybody on the Republic, all that stuff. Like, which was a great shout out to Godfather. It was almost like Godfather in space, you know. That was so cool, so well done, and it really is, yeah, without a doubt, the best of the prequels. I like it a lot. I definitely, out of the three, this is the one without a doubt I'd watch it any day.
I guess episode 3 was probably the best of the 3 movies. It's the most important. It showed a lot more. It was the most necessary if you want to get into episode 4, 5, and 6. Showed how Darth Vader became to be and all that. So I would say it was definitely the best of the 3. Some good moments with episode 3. Some. I mean, Sam Jackson was there. It was cool. Yeah, I mean, if you want to see it, see it. I mean, I'm not recommending it, but if you're curious, it's okay. It's really bad. It's really bad. Yeah, those 3 movies permanently damaged the series.
Revenge of the Sith, best one of the series. It was like, wow, what a great finale, and also what a great like explanation about how Darth Vader became Darth Vader. I mean, again, is it a great film? No, but it's definitely a great finale. But this may, again, I don't know if fans are going to either agree or disagree or hate me for saying this, but remember the ending, what happens to Padme? I cried when she died. I'm sorry.
The final film of the prequel trilogy is Revenge of the Sith. Again, I went in wanting to like it, but I didn't find the corruption of Anakin, the path that led him to become Darth Vader. I didn't think they developed that very well, much like the love story in the previous film. I felt like it just had to happen to make the original trilogy make sense, but I didn't feel when I was watching it that they were convincing me that this is I don't know. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel like it made as much sense as it should have. And so it just left me kind of, like, I didn't hate it, but I certainly didn't love it. And like I said, I have never felt the need to watch it or any of the prequel trilogy again.
My biggest problem with Revenge of the Sith is that this one, out of all the other prequels, had the most potential to be a great film. This was the one that we were all waiting for, we were all hyped up for, since we were little kids, since we first heard Obi-Wan Kenobi explain to Luke about the fall of Anakin and the rise of Darth Vader and the Empire and all that stuff. And unfortunately, this is nothing like we could have ever imagined. Yes, I do mean that in a bad way. I mean, this is just a terrible film. I really wish it was better. And it does seem like, in the beginning, like George Lucas had a spark of creativity and said, okay, I'm going to do what I didn't do in the other two, and I'm actually going to try in this one. Because when it begins, it's all-out war. This is just chaos. This is the end of the Clone Wars. Anakin and Obi-Wan are flying in their ships, battling droids. They land, they jump out of their ships, they take out their lightsabers, battle some more droids. It's all cool. Acting at this point, we can't really tell because it's still actiony, but it doesn't seem like Anakin is being that annoying statue that he was in Attack of the Clones, or even that annoying kid that he was in Phantom Menace. It seems like, okay, he's a little more mature. He's wearing a cool suit now. He's dark. He's a little darker, you could tell. He's kind of like Luke in Return of the Jedi. He's kind of matured a little bit. And my theory is that this all ends. All this coolness, all this relief ends the moment that Count Dooku dies. Now, from that scene, they go on, and of course, Anakin battles Dooku. Dooku dies. And right after that scene, this movie just falls apart. Automatically, you're having stupid shit happen. Anakin is carrying Obi-Wan, and somehow they're able to land this big-ass ship into a planet which you think scientifically, okay, wouldn't that, destroy the city? But okay. Then he goes and he meets Padme, and her acting is shit, so then you're like, oh, I'm being reminded of the other movies. And you're getting into the politics again, and you go back into stupid shit like Anakin whining again about why he's not a master, and all this bullshit that you don't want to see, you don't want to remember. You wish that somehow they had just rebooted it in the third film and just forgot the other two and just said, all right, this is a reboot / sequel, and let's just do this over. But unfortunately, it really is a terrible film. This is just a piece of shit. It sucks because, like I said, there are some cool things in this movie. Besides the beginning, I think, Darth Vader finally rising was cool. Just on a little question, I had this thought. I rewatched this film right before doing this review, and I asked myself, in today's society, could we do Darth Vader again? Like or for the first time, if Star Wars had never existed, can we do Darth Vader? The only reason I ask is because in our political climate, having a black man's voice on a white body seems a little bit iffy. You know what I mean? Would that be considered a form of blackface? I don't know if people would take too well to that. But anyway, that's just on a side note. Sorry about that. I don't know. Palpatine is cool. He, how he becomes Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine is pretty cool. The scene when he actually gives a speech and all the people applaud for this idea of this new empire is chilling. That reminds you of real life, like when Saddam Hussein took over Iraq, or Hitler came to power in Germany, or any of that stuff. It's a cool scene. The fight between Palpatine and Yoda is pretty cool. The fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan is flawless. I have to admit that right away. That is flawless. I think that's beautiful. That's what I always imagined, and that itself was really cool. Anakin being burned, all that stuff. The whole way it comes about, that is really cool. But that's the problem with this film, is that pieces of it are cool. All together, it's just a big jumbled mess. The story is, it's there. The screenwriting, the script is horrible. There are lines in this film that, it makes you remember when your teacher told you, make sure that you show, don't tell. Well, in this movie, they tell and just don't show. It's fucking annoying. Anakin's acting, Hayden Christensen, is garbage. Natalie Portman is garbage in this film. Ewan McGregor is okay. Like I said in my Attack of the Clones review, he's doing something. He's actually channeling the original Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's cool. I like that. Samuel Jackson is garbage. I love Samuel Jackson in all the films, but in this one he's horrible. Yoda's okay, but overall, yeah, this movie doesn't work. It's sad because, it should work. It should be really cool. It should be the dark story that we all imagine. Unfortunately, the tone is all over the place as well. It's too light for adults, but then too dark for kids. Makes no fucking sense. I don't know what George Lucas was thinking. And what I mean by that is, it has the dialogue that kids would enjoy because it's so simple that they'll understand it. But then what's happening on screen is so dark that a kid, I can imagine, would be just frightened or disturbed by it. You have a point where Anakin is killing kids, and it's like, okay, they don't really show it, but at the same time, it's implied, and it's so dark. You know what I mean? And if they had found that perfect balance the way I feel Force Awakens did, then we can say, okay, it may be a little too dark for kids, but it's still a great film, and if your kid is mature enough for it, you can take them to see it. But it doesn't even work on that level, so it's like, it's just, this is a bad film. It's depressing. It's not Phantom Menace, but nothing is Phantom Menace, So it's like, that's not really saying anything. I don't really enjoy Attack of the Clones more than this. It's not on that level. When I say that Attack of the Clones is a step up from Phantom Menace, I don't actually mean it's literally better. I just mean there are things in it that can work on a fanboy's point of view, but as a film itself, just breaking down the structure of the film and everything, it doesn't work at all. So it's just on the exact same level, and the same thing with this one. Just on a structural level, a basic, textbook film school level, this movie is the same quality that Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace are. But as a fanboy, yes, there are things that are cool. Again, still not that good. You still get pissed off, as a fan as well. Just seeing this piece of shit character, Anakin Skywalker, whine and moan about how he's not getting what he deserves. It's like, I get that from everyday life. I don't need that in one of my favorite characters. It's just, no, I want to escape that, my real life, to enjoy a character who's not like that. Yeah, we can relate to him, but not on that basic fucking level of, why am I dealing with this teenager? But anyway, yeah, overall, this movie's shit. There are times where, when I'm really depressed, I say, okay, let me go watch Revenge of the Sith to kind of make myself remember that, you know what, there are better things in life than this film, and I should probably go do that instead. But other than that, yeah, I don't really go seeking this movie. I don't seek any of them, any of the prequels. But, I actively try not to watch this one. And I would say that you should actively try not to watch this one. If you happen to come across it, hey, and you're like, hey, I never saw this film. I can't stop you. I would like to, but I can't. So you do whatever you want. But overall, yeah, I don't recommend this film to anybody at all. I say instead what you should do is go watch the Clone Wars cartoon. Me and my brother, we love that cartoon. That is the prequel that we wish George Lucas had done. It's dark. It has the right tone because it's dark, but then it has lightness, just in the right parts. It has great dialogue. It has great stories. It comes together well. It has the nerd factor. If you want to watch a prequel of Star Wars, go watch Clone Wars. Just watch Clone Wars, pretend the movies don't exist, and watch Clone Wars, the cartoon. That's a great cartoon. And I'm not even talking about that old, Samurai Jack looking one. I'm talking about the CG'd Cartoon Network show that lasted, I think, 6 seasons that they're bringing back, I think, this year. That one. Watch that one because Anakin actually acts the way you want him to. Obi-Wan, he's doing what Ewan McGregor did in this one, but it still works. It still works. Like I said in this one, it works for Ewan McGregor and I like it. But it's better in that cartoon because the whole cartoon is good. And yeah, so that's my review of Revenge of the Sith. I wish I could give a better review. I wish I could say, this is a great film. I really wish I could, but I honestly can't. I have very little to no love for these prequels, to be honest. And even the very little love that I have for them is like, hey, Samuel Jackson has a purple lightsaber. That's the extent of it, to be honest. So, yeah, anyway, thank you so much for listening to this review. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Christian, for allowing me to be a part of this. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. You do amazing work. I appreciate you so much. And thank you guys so much for listening. Bye-bye.